these shows just kind of faded away. Cable
Yeah,
television is pretty much non-existent these days. Streaming is pretty much the way to watch TV now.
I think like they're making like partnerships with these cable companies and replacing the regular boxes with just like streaming type of things.
Oh, what's up? Oh, what's up?
Yo, what up? It's Maj back here with another video. Today we're about to be reacting to a video by the Sitcom Guy. This video is going to be on the death of teen sitcoms. Oh my gosh, man, this is like a bulk of my childhood, a real bulk of my childhood. Sweet Life on Deck, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, both the same things technically. Wizards of Waverly Place. You got Hannah Montana, all of them on screen, Drake and Josh, just a handful of them that just can't be made. Like, they awfully always chart, like, well, some never mind, let me take that back. Some can be awful and some can be like a hit or miss. I'm talking about like them trying to make like a sequel to it or like a requel to something nowadays, and sometimes it's always a hit or miss because you can't never recreate that, you know, that moment in time. And for me, I recently seen that they're revamping My Babysitter's a Vampire, and oh my god, I am not in the mood for them to do this because like they left off on a sour ass note. Sour ass note is, for me, is, you know, basically them not finishing the damn thing and or canceling it. But man, I don't know, but I guess that thing is probably not going to be for my generation. But let's just get into it and let's see what discussion we're going to be getting into. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.
There was a period of time where teen sitcoms absolutely dominated kids' TV. Drake and Josh, iCarly, That's So Raven, Zoe 101, Lizzie McGuire, Kenan and Kel, Boy Meets World, Saved by the Bell. There was like a good 20-year stretch where these shows were the thing. Not just popular, but the biggest shows on kids' networks. They created stars and launched music careers, movie careers. They had entire brands built around these shows. And, you know, looking back on it, it's hard to really fathom how dominant these shows really were because every kid in America was watching them. And I mean everybody knew about That's So Raven, everybody knew about Zack and Cody and Hannah Montana. We all knew these characters and we knew all the references to the shows. And
yeah, it's kind of crazy. Niggas from the hood knew about iCarly. Niggas from the burbs knew about iCarly. Like any some people even out of like the damn state, like that, I think either, you know, some shows weren't like shown over there, they even know about like some of these classic ass shows.
it didn't matter where you were from, didn't matter what school you went to, and it didn't matter what kind of kid you were. If you grew up during this era, chances are these shows were part of your childhood. And it's kind of crazy because teen sitcoms themselves weren't always a thing, and in the modern day they're basically a dead genre. Netflix and other networks are still making new sitcoms, and networks are still rebooting old shows as well, but the teen sitcom genre has almost quietly disappeared. That entire ecosystem just feels gone, and honestly it's got me thinking, what actually happened to teen sitcoms? So it's actually funny to think about it now because sitcoms feel like they've existed forever at this point, but they were never originally made for kids specifically. They were always for adults and more about families for the most part. You had shows like Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, I Love Lucy, The Honey.
I would say I don't know some of these, but my parents are like a little older and they would watch like these ones, I Love Lucy and Leave It to Beaver. My mom was just probably like watching it a month ago and I was like, what the hell is this?
Mooners, you know, adult shows, family shows, workplace shows, that type of stuff. They had teenagers in those shows, but they were more so side characters and they weren't necessarily the entire focus. You know, one of the earliest examples people point to is Dobie Gillis back in 1959. The school and the dating and trying to fit in, all that kind of cliche stuff, and it almost feels like a prototype for what this genre would go on to be later on. You know, it's almost like they kind of stumbled onto this idea decades before it would become this huge phenomenon, right? And you know, later you get shows like Happy Days and The Monkees and What's Happening, you know, youth-oriented television. But if you're looking for the modern blueprint for teen sitcoms, the thing that Nickelodeon and Disney would eventually perfect, that probably would start with Saved by the Bell. Saved by the Bell is kind of patient zero for the type of formula that you would see later on. This was a pretty major pivot in TV history because networks were starting to realize that kids wanted to watch other kids their age. Shocking revelation there, I know, but before this, most sitcoms were just more adult oriented. Teen sitcoms translated that exact formula onto younger audiences. Instead of marriages, you had stuff like,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people always mention Saved by the Bell, even to this day. Even probably like as like a older person, they always mention Saved by the Bell. I guess that was their type of Hannah Montana, iCarly type of thing back in the day. But like, I feel like it kind of ramped up in the '90s also too.
first crushes, and instead of the normal office drama or workplace rivalries, you would have school drama and sibling rivalry, popularity, cliques, relationships with teachers, getting your first job, getting your first car, you know, everything that teenagers eventually deal with. And that was a genius formula, because maybe for the first time in TV history, kids could actually see their own lives reflected back at them. And once networks realized that this was a gold mine, the floodgates just opened, and you had shows like Clarissa Explains It All, Sister Sister, Boy Meets World, Kenan and Kel, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, all these 90s shows that kind of spawned after Saved by the Bell. Suddenly there was just this entire lane being carved out specifically for this genre. And by the late 90s and early 2000s, Disney and Nickelodeon were basically pushing these shows out like a sweatshop. Drake and Josh, and Zoe 101, and Ned's Declassified, iCarly, Lizzie McGuire, and That's So
Yeah, I would say he's not exaggerating like a damn sweatshop, bro. These motherfuckers were doing a lot of weird ass shit back in the day, especially the Dan Schneider type of thing. They had actual type of pedos working on the set. You know the whole story with Drake, with like Drake Bell. You know, like one of the people being outed as a predator, and you know Disney actually hiring that predator, which is crazy.
Raven, and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place, and all these shows just dominated that 2000s decade. And it really made, you know, childhood itself start feeling like a brand in some sense. You know, you had more Disney kids and other kids that were more Nickelodeon kids, you know, and people always argued. I remember when I was a kid that people always argued over which network was better. They were arguing like these were sports teams, and these shows got massive.
I'm not gonna lie, I was not arguing over what was better. I flipped over to what I liked better. I mean, I flipped over to what show I liked better at the time. If some show I didn't like at the time was on, flip the Disney Channel. Vice versa. But I was more of a Cartoon Network watcher, and sometimes still. So like, I was well rounded, honestly. I'm glad I was. I'm glad I wasn't a person that just stuck to one channel. That's boring as fuck. I like to have a variety of like options in the air. It's just like what I do with reaction content. Like, I'm into like sporadically a whole bunch of shit like WWE, just you know, scary movies, you know, this type of thing, streamers. I just have a whole field to just play on. I don't like being held to like just one little, you know, type of thing.
You know, iCarly episodes were pulling like 10 million viewers per episode at some point. Hannah Montana became a worldwide phenomenon. Not only was the show huge, but Miley Cyrus became one of the biggest celebrities on earth. She had tours and albums and merchandise and movies and crossovers with Zack and Cody, you know, special events. And I think what you would see around all these shows are these ecosystems, you know. And, you know, while millennials and Gen Z didn't exactly witness the invention of the teen sitcom, we definitely experienced their absolute peak, you know, not the beginning, but the golden age. They're the period where teen sitcoms completely dominated youth culture. And it was kind of insane because it was one of the last true examples of a youth monoculture. You know, everybody saw the same episodes and heard the same jokes and sang the same theme songs. And that's a type of thing that you just don't see today. And I think this is the part people don't really talk about enough, because these shows mattered, you know, not because they were masterpieces by any means, not because every episode was just unbelievable, but because they gave kids emotional guidance without feeling too preachy, you know, without feeling educational. For example, a show like Drake and Josh isn't just about stepbrothers. Obviously it's a relatable situation, but a lot of the bigger themes there are learning how to live with somebody that's completely different than you. Again, that's one of those things that almost everybody can relate to, and especially if you have siblings. You know, these shows made growing up seem fun, and it kept things optimistic. Even in harder situations, they still found a way to spin it to have a positive attitude towards everything. And I don't think people talk enough about what these shows actually did for, you know, again, that generation. And another thing about
Yeah, really. I'm surprised they like kind of nailed the whole thing. Like after like Debbie Ryan like left. Well, no, not left. After like Sweet Life on Deck went off, and then they nailed it on the spot with like Jesse, bro. Like it's like they got lucky on a lot of shows, and like I feel like, well, I can't say lucky because like they designed these shows just like just pretty good, and it really kind of did the whole good thing of just like relating to everybody. And I feel like nowadays they just can't do that, bro.
this too is that for a lot of kids, these were probably the first sitcoms they ever watched before they were exposed to stuff like Friends or Cheers or Seinfeld or Frasier, King of Queens, you know, Martin, all this kind of stuff. These shows were basically like the training wheels for those, and they introduced us to ensemble casts and running jokes and recurring characters and callbacks, season arcs.
Not gonna lie, that statement right there is true. It kind of this is like the training wheels that kind of got us up to like all the other classic ass 90 shows. Because I watched the Jamie Foxx show, I watched Martin. Martin's such a fucking classic ass show. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I feel like Prince of Bel-Air was like the tamer thing to get into, and then you go to Martin, then you go all to the, you know, the adult ones, and like it was just like a bundle of stuff like you like just unseen. Like the not those were like the adult, those are like like the sitcoms for the adults. But like the kids shows, like these are like those were our playgrounds, and then you get up to the big time.
Character archetypes. They introduced millions of people to the sitcom formula itself, and that is dope. You know, I loved Sanford and Son growing up, I loved Martin growing up, but I didn't necessarily understand why I loved them because I was so young when I was watching them. These teen sitcoms made a lot more sense to me at the time. I could relate to Drake and Josh, I could relate to these younger characters. Then eventually, as I got older, I found my way into those mature sitcoms, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people as well. You know, these were kind of like a gateway and prepared you for those more mature themes that would come later. And you know, I think, just in my opinion, that's kind of profound if you really think about it. So if these shows were so great and all this, then what happened? Well, I think all in all, the environment that created these shows just kind of faded away. Cable television is pretty much non-existent these days. Streaming is pretty much the way to watch TV now. You got YouTube.
I'm still like kind of crazed that they're actually still pushing the cable TV nowadays. It's probably in the homes of like older people or people that just won't let go of the past, because like streaming is literally the future right now. We're seeing stuff still unfold in front of our eyes, even though Netflix has been around for years. Like it's being pushed these past years heavily. I think like they're making like partnerships with these cable companies and replacing the regular boxes with just like streaming type of things, and it's whatever subscription you want to add on. I seen it coming now, but like I feel like yeah, cable really had a big ass part of just like pushing these shows. And I feel like the watching part about it, not having to watch all these shows on demand, kind of did it too. You having to wait another separate week for another season to come on, bro. It was just so exciting to do all of that, bro. But nowadays you got everything on demand.
Being the biggest media platform on earth, you had TikTok coming out of left field and giving everybody brain rot. You know, social media has kind of become everything in this day and age, and kids just aren't on the same stuff anymore. Everybody's just consuming all kinds of different media. You know, some kids watch Twitch streaming, some kids watch TikTok, some people watch YouTube, some barely watch anything at all. You know, everything is so niche and personalized now that everybody has their own algorithm, their own feed, their own rabbit hole. And I think once that happened, these teen sitcoms lost their biggest advantage, which was shared experience, because that's really what these shows were thriving on, was that monoculture. And now that environment just does not exist. Again, adult sitcoms continue surviving because adults still crave comfort TV. Obviously, people still endlessly rewatch stuff like Friends or The Office or Martin, whatever, but younger audiences seem to consume entertainment completely differently. They gravitate towards drama and reality TV and influencers, and the even younger kids, like the kids that are under 10 10 years old, they're growing up in a completely different media landscape with, you know, pretty much brain rot around every corner. And honestly,
Oh my gosh, yeah, I reviewed like brain rot type of things in our other video. And yeah, they are going through the ringer with like the algorithm. When the algorithm learns your specific type of thing, though, you keep flipping, you see the same type of videos, same type of songs. Like it just gets bad. And then, you know, these little kids growing up with YouTube kids. Back in the day, they didn't used to have YouTube kids. Took like a scandal from back in 2016 for them to have that shit. But the land was dangerous way back then, but like YouTube kids, like it's in danger of just being more brain rot is what I'm saying.
it's just sad and depressing in a lot of ways, because these shows might have been one of the last truly shared childhood experiences. And I think that's something worth appreciating, because for a brief period in TV history, millions and millions of kids kind of grew up together on the same characters and the same channels. And maybe that's why these shows still feel so special to us that experienced it, because it kind of represents the entire era. And if you happen to grow up during this time, you should consider yourself lucky, because we got to experience something that television might never be able to recreate again.
This is a beautiful video by the sitcom guy. Go make sure you have subscribed to him, bro. And yeah, like I'm literally glad I grew up in this era with deep appreciation for like for these type of shows, because like you said, this is like probably the last era of like us growing up and being lucky to even watch these shows, because nowadays there's a lot of brain rot around, a lot of stuff on demand to watch, people watching Twitch streamers now, YouTube. I know it's anticlimactic that I'm saying people watch YouTube and I want people to watch me. I mean, it's like that, but yeah, nowadays it is what it is. I mean, they're gonna grow up with what they want to grow up with, and I guess that's being a big bulk part of just being entertained by TikTok. Yeah, TikTok and, you know, Instagram and all these things have a lot of entertaining value, but I try to like not scroll that much. I like watching like shows and like older shows, bro. That's my hook right there. If I'm like editing the video, I'll be like watching like a show in the background to just like calm my nerves. But let me know what was your guys' favorite teen sitcom, and let me know if you glad you grew up in that era. I don't know what type of ages that I'm targeting right now, but let's see who it is. But don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Go check out the Sitcom Guy's original video. We are on the road to 850. Catch you guys in the next video.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?